My name is Marcus Webb, and I'm about to tell you how my own brother stole everything my father built and left me with nothing. But don't worry, this story has an ending he never saw coming. It started with a phone call at 3 a.m., you know the kind. The one that makes your heart stop before you even answer. My wife Sarah grabbed my arm as I reached for the phone, her eyes wide with worry. It was County General Hospital. Dad had suffered a massive stroke. I needed to come now. I threw on clothes and raced across town, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Dad was only 68. He was supposed to have years left. We were supposed to go fishing next weekend like we'd planned. I just talked to him 2 days ago about expanding his construction business. The company he'd built from nothing over 40 years. When I burst through those hospital doors, I expected to see my brother Derek. We hadn't spoken in months after a stupid argument about Dad's care, but surely he'd be there. Surely family meant something in moments like these. The nurse directed me to the ICU and my stomach dropped with every step. Dad looked so small in that hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere, machines beeping steadily. His face was pale, one side drooping from the stroke. I grabbed his hand and felt the calluses from decades of construction work. These were the hands that taught me to swing a hammer, to measure twice and cut once, to build something that would last. Mr. Webb? A doctor appeared beside me, her expression grave. Your father's condition is critical. The stroke affected a large portion of his brain. We're doing everything we can, but you should prepare yourself. I spent the next 12 hours in that chair, holding Dad's hand, talking to him about every memory I could think of. Remember when you taught me to drive in that old pickup truck? Remember building that treehouse that Mom said would fall apart but lasted 10 years? I was still talking when his heart monitor went flat at 4:17 p.m. My father, Raymond Webb, was gone. The funeral was 3 days later. I handled everything because Derek was supposedly out of state on business. That's what his wife Vanessa told me when I finally reached her. Business. Our father was dead, and my brother was handling business. I picked out Dad's casket, wrote his obituary, chose the flowers, and stood at the front of Morrison's funeral home, greeting relatives and Dad's old crew from Webb Construction. These men, some of them working for Dad for 20 years, cried openly. But my own brother, he rolled in 30 minutes before the service started, wearing an expensive suit I'd never seen before, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Sorry I couldn't get here sooner, Derek said, barely looking at me. Big deal closing in Denver. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. I worked as a high school shop teacher. Same job for 12 years. I made decent money, enough for Sarah and our 2 kids, but nothing like Derek's sales executive lifestyle. He drove a BMW, lived in a McMansion in the suburbs, and always seemed to have money for the latest everything. You couldn't take one day off for your own father's death? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Derek shrugged. I'm here now, aren't I? Besides, Dad would understand. He was a businessman. He'd want me to close the deal. He walked away before I could respond, making a beeline for Dad's business partner, Frank Morrison. The service was beautiful. Frank gave a eulogy that had everyone in tears, talking about Dad's integrity, his loyalty, his dedication to his workers. Ray Webb never cut a corner, never cheated a client, and never forgot where he came from, Frank said, his voice breaking. He was the best man I ever knew. I watched Derek check his phone during the eulogy, after we buried Dad in Riverside Cemetery, right next to Mom's grave like he wanted. People came back to Dad's house for the reception. Sarah made sandwiches and coffee while I tried to hold it together, accepting condolences and sharing stories. Dad's lawyer, Richard Paulson, pulled me aside near the end. Marcus, we need to schedule a reading of your father's will. Can you come to my office Monday at 2 p.m.? And make sure Derek is there. What's in the will? I asked. Richard gave me a sad smile. All in good time, son. Monday at 2. Monday came too fast and too slow. I couldn't sleep Sunday night, my mind racing with possibilities. Dad's house was paid off, worth maybe $300,000. The business, Webb Construction, was successful but not huge. Probably worth another $500,000 with all the equipment and contracts. I figured Derek and I would split everything down the middle. That's what brothers do, right? Sarah kissed me before I left for the lawyer's office. "Whatever happens, we'll be fine," she said. "We have each other and the kids. That's what matters." I loved her for saying it, but I'd be lying if I said the money didn't matter. We had credit card debt from when Sarah's mom got sick last year. The roof needed replacing. Emma needed braces. That inheritance could change everything for us. Derek was already in Richard's office when I arrived, sitting in the expensive leather chair near the window like he owned the place. His BMW was parked in the spot closest to the door. Of course it was. "Gentlemen, thank you for coming," Richard said, settling behind his desk. He was maybe 60, gray hair neatly combed, reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd handled legal work for Dad for decades. "I know this is a difficult time, but we need to address Raymond's final wishes." He opened a folder and pulled out a document, several pages thick. My hands started sweating. "Your father updated his will 8 months ago," Richard began. He was very specific about his wishes. "The house, the business, all vehicles, bank accounts, and personal effects are to be distributed as follows." I leaned forward in my seat. "Everything, the house, Webb Construction, all assets and accounts, are to go to Derek Webb in their entirety." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually gasped, unable to process what I'd just heard. "Everything? To Derek? All of it? Wait," I managed to croak out. "Wait, that can't be right. There must be some mistake." Richard looked at me with genuine sympathy. "I'm sorry, Marcus. Your father was very clear. I even asked him multiple times to reconsider, to at least leave you something, but he insisted." I turned to Derek, expecting to see shock or confusion on his face. Instead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. He was smiling. Not a sad smile or an apologetic smile. Satisfied smile. "Derek, did you know about this?" I asked. He shrugged, the same casual gesture he'd made at the funeral. "Dad talked to me about it a few months ago. Said he wanted the business to go to someone who understood money, who could grow it. No offense, Marcus, but you're a teacher. What do you know about running a construction company?" "I grew up in that business." My voice was rising despite my best efforts. "I spent every summer working on sites with Dad. I know that company inside and out. Knowing how to swing a hammer isn't the same as running a business," Derek said coolly. Dad knew that. He made the smart choice. I turned back to Richard. "He left me nothing? Not even a personal item? What about Mom's wedding ring? Her jewelry? The tools in Dad's workshop?" Richard flipped through the pages. "Everything is included in the estate that goes to Derek. Your father did leave you one thing, however." He pulled out a sealed envelope with my name on it. "This letter." I took it with shaking hands. Dad's handwriting on the front. "For Marcus. I wanted to rip it open right there, but I couldn't. Not in front of Derek and his smug face, is that all?" Derek asked, standing up. "I need to get to the bank and start transferring accounts." "Lots to do. There are documents to sign," Richard said. "The estate needs to go through probate, which will take several months. You can't access anything until that's complete." Derek's smile faltered slightly. "How long exactly?" 4 to 6 months, typically. I'll file the paperwork this week." After Derek left, I sat in that office chair, unable to move. Richard poured me a glass of water from a pitcher on his credenza. "Did Dad seem... Was he in his right mind when he changed the will?" I asked. Richard sighed deeply. "He was completely lucid, Marcus. I asked him directly if he was under any pressure or influence. He said no. He seemed absolutely certain about his decision. I didn't open the letter until I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot. My hands trembled as I tore the envelope. Dad's handwriting, shaky but readable, filled 2 pages. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for what I've done, but I need you to understand. Derek came to me 8 months ago with proof that you've been stealing from the family. He showed me bank records, forged checks, documents that showed you'd been taking money from the business for years." My heart stopped. "What?" "He said you'd been covering your tracks, but he'd hired a private investigator who uncovered everything. He showed me how you'd stolen over $200,000. I was heartbroken, Marcus. How could my own son betray me like that?" Tears blurred my vision. None of this was true. Not a single word. Derek begged me not to go to the police. He said it would destroy the family, ruin your career, hurt Sarah and the kids. He convinced me to change my will instead, to make sure you couldn't steal anymore. He promised he'd take care of you, give you something from the estate once everything was settled. I want you to know I didn't do this out of hate. I did it to protect what I built and to keep you out of prison. Derek said if I gave you nothing officially, you'd have no reason to contest it and risk the truth coming out. I hope someday you'll get help for whatever drove you to steal from your own father. I'm sorry it had to end this way. Dad, I read the letter 3 times, unable to breathe. Derek had fabricated everything. He'd lied to our father, created false evidence, and manipulated Dad into cutting me out of the will completely. And Dad had believed him. My father died thinking I was a thief. I called Sarah from the parking lot, barely coherent. She couldn't understand me through my sobs. When I finally got the story out, her voice turned to steel. Marcus, listen to me. Derek is a liar. You've never stolen anything in your life. We're going to prove it. How? Dad believed him. The will is done. Then we'll fight it. We'll hire our own lawyer. With what money? I asked. We're barely making ends meet as it is. Silence on the other end. We both knew the truth. Fighting a will contest would cost tens of thousands of dollars we didn't have. But Sarah was right about one thing. I couldn't just let this go. That night, after putting the kids to bed, I sat at our kitchen table and started making a list. If Derek had fabricated evidence against me, there had to be a trail. People don't just create fake bank records out of thin air. The next morning, I called the school and took a personal day. Then I drove to Webb Construction's office, a modest building on the industrial side of town. Dad's secretary, Linda Marshall, had worked there for 15 years. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red from crying. Oh, Marcus, she said, coming around her desk to hug me. I'm so sorry about your dad. And I heard about the will. I can't believe it. Linda, I need your help. Can I look at the company's financial records? Specifically, anything from the last year? She glanced nervously toward Dad's old office, where Derek had apparently already set up camp. His jacket was draped over Dad's chair, his laptop on the desk that Dad had used for 40 years. Derek said nobody's allowed to access records without his permission now, Linda whispered. He's already changed all the passwords and locks. He came in yesterday and spent 3 hours in there with some accountant. My suspicions deepened. Did anything unusual happen about 8 or 9 months ago? Any strange visitors? Anyone asking about the company's finances? Linda thought for a moment. Actually, yes. Derek brought some man here, said he was a business consultant. They met with your dad for maybe 2 hours in his office. Your dad was really quiet after that meeting, seemed upset. That was right around when he stopped coming in regularly. Do you remember the consultant's name? Something like Hendricks? No, Henderson. James Henderson. He left a business card. Linda rifled through her desk drawer and pulled out a card. Henderson Investigative Services. A private investigator, just like Dad's letter mentioned. But who was Henderson really working for? I pocketed the card. Linda, if Derek asks, don't mention I was here, please. She nodded. Marcus, your dad loved you. Right up until those last few months, you were all he talked about. How proud he was that you became a teacher. How you were good with your kids. Something changed, but it wasn't real. I know it wasn't. James Henderson's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. The sign on the door said Henderson Investigative Services, discreet, professional, reliable. I sat in my truck across the parking lot for 20 minutes, gathering courage. When I finally walked in, a bell chimed. The office was small, just a desk, a couple of filing cabinets, and a man in his 50s with a receding hairline and cheap suit. Help you? He asked, barely looking up from his computer. My name is Marcus Webb. I think you did some work involving me about 8 months ago. That got his attention. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. Webb, Raymond Webb's son? The one you investigated for supposedly stealing from the family business. Except I never stole anything, and I think you know that. Henderson's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. I don't know what you're talking about. Client privilege and all that. My brother Derek hired you to fabricate evidence against me. He used that fake evidence to convince my dying father to cut me out of his will entirely. That's fraud, Mr. Henderson, that's conspiracy. That could cost you your license and put you in prison. He laughed, but it sounded nervous. You got any proof of these accusations? Not yet, but I will. See, my wife's cousin is an investigator with the state licensing board for private investigators. One call from me, and they'll audit every case you've worked in the last 5 years. How many other times have you fabricated evidence? How many other families have you helped destroy? I was bluffing about Sarah's cousin. She worked in real estate. But Henderson didn't know that. He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. Look, I didn't fabricate anything. Your brother came to me with documentation, asked me to verify it and write a report. That's what I did. What documentation? Bank statements, check copies, transaction records. Everything looked legitimate. I just confirmed what was already there and wrote it up professionally. Where did he get those documents? Henderson shrugged. Didn't ask, didn't care. People bring me stuff all the time. I verify it, write a report, collect my fee. That's the job. Did you actually verify any of it? Call banks? Check signatures? His silence was answer enough. He paid you to rubber stamp fake documents without doing any real investigation, I said. That's fraud. Henderson stood up. This conversation is over. Get out of my office. I left Henderson's office feeling like I'd hit a wall. Without his cooperation, I had nothing. No proof, no evidence, just Dad's letter that showed Derek had manipulated him. That wasn't enough to contest a will. When I got home, Sarah was at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and her laptop. She looked up with fire in her eyes. I found something, she said. Over the past 2 days, while I'd been drowning in grief and confusion, Sarah had been doing research. She'd pulled our own bank records going back 3 years. She'd made calls to Dad's bank, claiming to be organizing his affairs. And she'd found something strange. Look at this, she said, pointing to a statement on her screen. This is your dad's business account from 9 months ago. See these withdrawals? 5,000 here, 3,000 there, another 7,000. All of them made by check. Okay, I said, not seeing where she was going. Now look at these. She pulled up another document. These are copies of checks that Henderson showed your dad. The ones supposedly proving you stole money. See the check numbers? I looked closer. The check numbers on the evidence matched the withdrawals from Dad's account, but the dates were different by weeks or months. Derek took real withdrawals from the business account, probably ones he made himself, and used photo editing software to change the dates. The amounts in the payee, Sarah explained. He made it look like you were stealing, but these are actually his own withdrawals. My heart started racing. That's fraud. That's proof. It's a start. But we need more. We need to prove Derek made those original withdrawals, not you. And that means getting access to the actual business records, not just the statements. Derek changed all the passwords. He's locked everyone out, Sarah smiled. Then we'll need to be creative. Frank Morrison was Dad's business partner for 22 years. He owned 49% of web construction, while Dad owned 51%. With Dad gone, Derek now held the majority stake, which meant Frank was technically working for my brother. I called Frank and asked to meet him at the same diner where he and Dad used to have breakfast every Saturday. He agreed immediately. Frank was in his 60s, barrel-chested, with calloused hands and steel-gray hair. He'd known me since I was in diapers. When I slid into the booth across from him, I could see the anger in his eyes. Your brother is a piece of work, Frank said before I could even start. First thing he did was try to force me to sell my stake in the company. Offered me half what it's worth. When I said no, he threatened to make my life hell. I need your help, Frank. Derek lied to Dad about me, fabricated evidence. I think I can prove it, but I need access to the company's real financial records. Derek changed everything. New passwords, new locks, even changed the combination on the safe in Ray's office. But you're still a partner. You have rights, Frank smiled grimly. I was hoping you'd say that. I already talked to my own lawyer. As 49% owner, I have the legal right to audit the company books. Derek can't stop me, and if I find anything improper, we can take it to the authorities. When can you do it? Tomorrow. My lawyer's drafting the formal request tonight. Derek has 72 hours to comply. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. Frank leaned forward. Marcus, I need you to understand something. I loved your dad like a brother. If Derek really did what you think, I'm not just helping you get your inheritance. I'm helping you clear Ray's memory. Your dad deserves better than to have died believing a lie. Derek went ballistic when Frank's lawyer served him with the audit request. I wasn't there, but Linda called me immediately. He's in his office screaming at someone on the phone, she whispered. I've never seen him like this. He's talking about lawyers and injunctions, and oh God, he's coming out. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, my own phone rang. Derek, what are you playing at? He snarled. I don't know what you mean. You got Frank to demand an audit? You're really going to drag this family through the mud because you're bitter? I'm not bitter, Derek. I'm clearing my name. Your name doesn't need clearing. Dad left you out of the will because you're a thief. Accept it and move on. I never stole anything, and you know it. You fabricated that evidence. You lied to our father on his deathbed. Silence on the line. Then be very careful, Marcus. You don't want to start a war with me. I have resources you can't imagine. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Drop this or I'll make sure you lose everything. Your job, your house, your reputation. I'll bury you so deep you'll never see daylight. He hung up. Sarah saw my face and grabbed my hand. What did he say? He threatened us. He threatened our whole life. Good, she said firmly. That means we're getting close. People don't make threats when they think they're safe. Frank's audit took place 3 days later, with his lawyer and an independent accountant present. Derek's lawyer was there too, a slick guy in a $1,000 suit who objected to everything. But the law was clear. Frank had the right to examine the company books. It took 6 hours, but they found it. Frank called me that night. His voice was shaking with rage. We found 17 withdrawals over the past year, totaling $143,000. All signed by Derek, all made out to cash or shell companies we can't trace. He's been bleeding the business dry. Can you prove it? Every check is photographed and documented. The signatures are his. We had them verified. And here's the best part. Some of these are the exact same checks he altered to make it look like you stole the money. We have the originals and his doctored versions. It's fraud, Marcus. Clear-cut, prosecutable fraud. I could barely breathe. What now? Now we go to the police. And now we contest the will. My lawyer says this is textbook undue influence and fraud. Derek manipulated your father with false evidence to change the will in his favor. That makes the will invalid. Will it work? Marcus, your brother committed multiple felonies. He forged documents, filed fraudulent reports, and stole from the company. Yes, it'll work. We have him dead to rights. The next morning, Frank and I walked into the police station together. Detective Sarah Chen listened to our story, reviewed our evidence, and made a call to the fraud division. By noon, they'd opened an investigation. By 4 p.m., 2 detectives showed up at Derek's house with a warrant. Linda called me crying happy tears. They just took Derek out in handcuffs. Marcus, they arrested him right in front of everyone. They took his computer, boxes of files from his office, everything. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt sad. This was my brother. We'd shared a bedroom growing up. I'd taught him to ride a bike. And he'd destroyed our family for money. The investigation moved fast once it started. Turns out Derek had been in serious financial trouble for over a year. His big sales job? He'd been fired 8 months ago for cooking his expense reports. The BMW leased and 3 months behind on payments. The big house, in foreclosure. Derek had been desperate, and Dad's construction company looked like a lifeline. But he couldn't just steal from it outright. Dad would notice. So he'd hatched a plan to frame me, get me cut out of the will, and take control of everything. What Derek hadn't counted on was Frank, or Sarah's persistence, or the fact that even grief-stricken, I wouldn't just roll over and accept being called a thief. The prosecutor, sharp woman named Angela Torres, laid it all out in her office. Your brother is looking at multiple felony counts. Fraud, forgery, theft, filing false documents. We're talking 15 to 20 years if convicted on all counts. His lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. What about the will? I asked. That's civil court, separate matter. But with this evidence, your lawyer should have no problem getting it overturned. The judge will see that your father was deceived by false evidence. The will was procured through fraud. She was right. 3 months later, a probate judge ruled that Dad's will was invalid due to undue influence and fraudulent misrepresentation. Everything reverted to Dad's previous will from 2 years earlier, the one that split everything 50-50 between Derek and me. Except now Derek was in prison awaiting trial, and his half was seized as part of the criminal restitution proceedings. The judge ruled that since Derek had stolen from the company, His inheritance would go toward repaying what he'd taken, plus damages, which meant I inherited everything after all. The house, the business, all of it. Standing in Dad's office, my office now, felt surreal. Frank had agreed to stay on as partner, helping me learn the business side. I kept teaching part-time, but slowly transitioned into running web construction. Linda stayed on as office manager. The crew, Dad's loyal workers, welcomed me with open arms. They'd known me since I was a kid, and they were thrilled to have a web running things again. "Your dad would be proud," Frank said one day as we reviewed a new contract. "You've got his integrity. That's worth more than Derek's business degree ever was. But the hardest part wasn't running the company. It was living with the knowledge that Dad died believing I was a thief. That his last thoughts of me were tainted by Derek's lies. Sarah found me one night in Dad's workshop, holding his favorite hammer and crying. "He didn't know," I said. "He died thinking I betrayed him." "But we know the truth," Sarah said gently. "And everyone else knows. Your dad's friends, his workers, everyone at the funeral. They all know Derek lied. Your father's legacy is intact. I just wish I could tell him. One more conversation. One chance to clear it up." "He knows now," Sarah said. "Wherever he is, he knows." I wanted to believe that. Some days I did. The business thrived under Frank's and my leadership. We landed a major municipal contract to renovate the old courthouse downtown. We hired 5 new workers. Within a year, web construction was more successful than it had ever been under Dad. I used some of the money to pay off our debts, fix the roof, and get Emma those braces. But I also set up a scholarship fund in Dad's name, for kids interested in skilled trades who couldn't afford college. Every year, we'd send 3 kids to vocational school, fully funded. Dad would have loved that. Derek's trial was 8 months after his arrest. He'd rejected the plea deal, convinced he could beat the charges. His lawyer argued that Derek had made business mistakes but hadn't committed crimes, that the evidence was circumstantial, that I had a motive to frame him. The jury didn't buy it. After just 4 hours of deliberation, they found him guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, theft, and, for good measure, attempted grand larceny for trying to steal Frank's partnership stake. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later. I attended, sitting in the gallery with Sarah on one side and Frank on the other. Derek's wife, Vanessa, was there too, filing for divorce. She'd lost everything when Derek's assets were seized: the house, the cars, their savings. She'd moved back in with her parents and taken their 2 kids with her. Derek looked terrible. Prison had aged him. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. The swagger was gone too. He looked small and broken. Judge Catherine Morrison, no relation to Frank, ironically, reviewed the case summary with a stern expression. "Mr. Webb, you committed a despicable act. You betrayed your own brother and manipulated your dying father for financial gain. You showed no remorse, no accountability, and no regard for the harm you caused. This court finds your actions particularly egregious given the breach of familial trust." She sentenced him to 12 years in prison, with mandatory restitution of all stolen funds plus damages. Derek would be nearly 50 when he got out. As the bailiffs led him away, Derek looked back at me one last time. Our eyes met. I expected to see hatred or defiance. Instead, I saw something that might have been regret, or maybe I just wanted to see it. 2 years after Dad's death, I stood at his grave on what would have been his 70th birthday. I'd come alone this time, needing to talk to him privately. "Hey, Dad," I said, kneeling by the headstone. "I'm running the business now. Frank's teaching me everything you never got to. We're doing good work, the kind of work you'd be proud of. No cutting corners, no cheating clients. Building things that last." A breeze rustled through the cemetery trees. "I know what Derek told you wasn't true. I know you died thinking I betrayed you, and that kills me every single day. But I need you to know, if you can hear me somehow, that I never stole from you. I never betrayed you. Everything Derek said was a lie." I placed a hand on the cold granite. "I forgave you for believing him. It's not your fault. Derek was convincing and you were sick. He manipulated you when you were vulnerable. I get it. I just hope that wherever you are, you know the truth now." "Marcus?" A voice behind me made me turn. Frank was walking up the hill, carrying flowers. "Thought you might be here," he said. "Brought your dad his favorite, sunflowers." We stood together in silence for a moment. "You know what the best revenge was?" Frank said finally. "It wasn't Derek going to prison or losing everything. It was you proving him wrong. He said you couldn't run a business, that you didn't understand money, but you've grown web construction beyond anything your dad or I dreamed of. You've hired from the community, paid fair wages, done right by everyone. That's the real victory." He was right. Derek had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying himself. Meanwhile, I'd built something Dad would have been proud of. Not just a successful business, but a life of integrity. That evening, I sat at the dinner table with Sarah, Emma, and our son Jake. We said grace, and I added something extra. "Thank you for family, the real kind. The kind that sticks together and tells the truth. The kind that builds each other up instead of tearing each other down." After dinner, Emma asked about Grandpa Ray. She'd been only 6 when he died, and her memories were fading. "He was the best man I ever knew," I told her. "He taught me that how you build something matters more than how fast you build it. That your word is everything. That family is supposed to protect each other, not destroy each other." "Like what Uncle Derek did?" Jake asked. "He was only 8 but understood more than we gave him credit for." "Yeah, buddy. Like what Uncle Derek did. But the important thing is we learned from it. We know what kind of people we want to be. The kind who tell the truth, even when it's hard. The kind who do the right thing even when it costs us." That night, lying in bed, Sarah asked me, "Do you still think about what Derek did?" "Every day," I admitted. "But it doesn't hurt like it used to. I'm not angry anymore. Just sad that it had to end this way. Sad that our kids will never know their uncle except as the man who went to prison. Sad that Dad died believing a lie. But you cleared his name," Sarah said. "Everyone knows the truth now. Ray Webb's legacy is intact, and you're carrying it forward." She was right. Web construction was growing. The scholarship fund was sending kids to school, and our family was strong. Derek had tried to steal my father's legacy, but he'd failed, because legacy isn't about money or property or who gets what in a will. Legacy is about the values you pass on, the lives you touch, the things you build that outlast you. Dad's legacy wasn't the construction company. It was the integrity, loyalty, and honest work he taught me. And no lying, scheming brother could ever steal that. That was my revenge, not destroying Derek, but becoming everything he'd never be. A good father, a fair employer, an honest businessman, and a man his own children could be proud of. I'd won not by beating Derek at his own game, but by refusing to play it at all.